Hello everyone, Happy New Year. Thanks for coming. We will wait a little bit for Colin. He has some connectivity issues.
Welcome, Colin.
Hello.
You all connected fine now?
Hey folks, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Great. All right. So sorry, I had some last minute internet issues. So I think we're gonna start with just sharing a brief overview of the Omnipool mechanisms and the role that HDX and LHDX play, just to make sure that as we get to the questions, we sort of start on the same page, if that makes sense. That the questions are based on a correct understanding of kind of the mechanisms that we envision. So I'm hoping that, Kubo, are you able to share the slides? And there aren't many slides, just so people know. We'll get through these quick.
Yeah, on it, just I was just I was just shuffling some tabs because I have like 5 browser windows open with 80 tabs, so it was a little bit messy. There is someone asking to join a stage, but maybe it was just later, man. We will go briefly through the explanation of pool. Then we will explain you much better why we had to split token to two tokens. Why is it not the rug pool or any other food circulating last days, and why is it bullish, and how it works. So yeah, let's move on.
We will have a chance for questions, just to be clear.
Yeah, so once we've done our presented a few pieces and broadly overviewed everything, we've pulled together a few of the questions from the AMA community AMA channel, which we'll go over those, and then we'll open up the floor for everyone to ask their questions for anything we haven't covered.
So are we able to get those slides up, or what's our? We're still working on that.
Apologies, we're having some issues sharing the content.
Excuse me, everyone. It looks like we need to move everybody from voice channel to general channel because my screen in voice channel.
We can see the slides now.
That's helpful.
Perfect. So here we are, and we can finally start. So again, thank you everyone for coming.
Well, just before we start, can I please ask all of the audience to mute the microphones because we have some overlap in the sound, so it will be easier for Kuba to focus and not be disturbed.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. I will we'll start by just going through these 5 slides, just an overview of the Omnipool mechanisms and kind of how LHDX and HDX work. So we want to just make sure we all understand that sort of as a baseline, as a starting point for questions. I was going to just walk through the basic operations and just, very basic version 1 of the Omnipool. So to start off, we'll talk about just like what happens at the very beginning when the Omnipool is initialized. Okay. So at the very beginning, it's going to have the dye from the LBP. It's going to have some amount of HDX basically that's coming from, liquidity mining sort of allotment or something basic to allow for some HDX liquidity. And then LHDX is going to be minted to correspond to the dye and the HDX. So now there's basically 2 tokens, 2 regular assets in the Omnipool at the start, and that's dye and HDX. And LHDX is minted to match those because LHDX is going to be kind of the central token. So the key things to understand here are that this is at the beginning, at the initialization, this is all the LHDX in existence. Okay. So no LHDX has been sold, no LHDX, there's nothing, no additional distribution. All of it is in this pool. And that and since it's in the protocol, right, it's in the pool that is the protocol that's owned and governed by HDX holders. So that's sort of a key thing to understand about that initial distribution of LHDX. Another important thing to understand is that this HDX is it's just going to be sort of minted as a fixed quantity, right? It comes from the, for example, probably from the liquidity mining allotment, and that's not going to oscillate throughout the life of the Omnipool, whereas the LHDX will be minted and burned a fair amount, and the supply of LHDX can oscillate quite dramatically throughout the life of the Omnipool. So if we want to go to the next slide, we'll kind of get into that. So this operation to talk about is what happens when a liquidity provider adds or removes liquidity. So when a liquidity provider adds liquidity, they only need to add a single asset. So here the LP is adding DAI. The protocol will mint LHDX so that the DAI to LHDX price, and therefore the DAI to any other asset in the pool price, will not change. So it's important that we have an algorithm, an AMM, where when a liquidity adds liquidity, we don't have prices change. And in order to attain that, we need to be able to mint, the protocol needs to be able to mint this, whatever the central token is, so LHDX here, to match the DAI that's been added. So it's important to note that there is no limit to how much LHDX can be minted this way, right? And likewise, when a liquidity provider removes liquidity, LHDX sometimes can be distributed to the liquidity provider, and some of it will be burned. Okay, so that depends on how much the price has moved throughout the duration of this, how long this liquidity has been provided. Right? And so what I'm sort of coming back to is emphasizing that the LHDX supply is oscillating quite, there's not really controls over the total LHDX supply as it's minted whenever a liquidity provider adds liquidity. And it's burned potentially whenever a liquidity provider removes liquidity. Okay. And this makes it very useful as a sort of central unit of account for the Omnipool. All right, so if we go to the next slide, we can look at what happens when an asset's added to the Omnipool. So here is our first instance of something that's really going to be determined or at least voted on by governance, right? So it is critical that we add assets that aren't just shitcoins, right? Because the system basically allows for, it's going to allow for whatever asset you add, traders can come in and buy and sell that asset for other assets in the Omnipool. And so the health of the protocol will rely on HDX holders via governance to approve or disapprove of adding different assets to the Omnipool. Now note that when that decision involves making a decision about LHDX supply, kind of indirectly, because if we, in this case, if we add DOT to the Omnipool, then LHDX can then be minted whenever an LP contributes DOT. To the DOT liquidity, LHDX will be minted, and that has obviously implications for the supply of LHDX. That, however, since HDX is a governance token, that's a vote of HDX holders. All right, so if we just got one more operation to talk about, and then we'll summarize. So can we go to the
Discord de Makers?
The next slide. So the last sort of basic operation to look at is a swap. The only reason I've excluded HDX from this graphic is for space, right? But HDX could also be one of these tokens on the left. But in this example, it's a DAI dot. So a trader is trading DAI in for DOT. So we're trading DAI in, and LHDX is moved from the DAI LHDX pair to the DOT LHDX pair, right? So this DAI comes in, LHDX is moved to the DOT subpool, and then the trader receives DOT.
Like they're racing on the murder bike down the hill.
And what's crucial is there are a number of places where we might take fees, right? And so this is some sort of...
Excuse me, I lost.
Initially, but
Can you please repeat? Can you please repeat like last 30 seconds about like that there are more places where are fees encountering.
Yeah, so I'm sort of going to try to articulate this, like where in the system might.
Can we mute the people who aren't supposed to be speaking?
Hello?
Yeah, so
we must you again.
We may rely on people to
Guys,
mute
just
themselves. I don't know if we have the
please
ability.
Colin, can you please repeat it again? We lost you again.
Yeah, I can. Yep, I will try. I don't know. Do we have the ability to mute others, or are we relying on them to mute themselves?
I muted everyone who were.
Okay. Okay. I'm still hearing TV in the background or something.
Except of Jimmy.
I will
We'll move back to the stage because we've got cap on the people who can come in, so people are getting blocked. So as soon as you've summarised that slide, we'll move back across to the other one where we can control the mute.
Yeah, we can go back to the stage after the presentation, but the stage was set up only for voice channel. It was possible to share screen.
It's chaos.
So, Colin, can you please try to third try?
Okay. Yep. Okay. So if we look at this diagram, sir, we see the three legs where there are potentially fees being levied, right? And so most likely it'll be the LHDX to LHDX kind of leg, and or the DOT, because those are the DOT leg is the token that's being in demand by this trade. But we can also charge a fee at the LHDX kind of leg. Now those fees, there's a number of potential destinations, right? They can remain in the pool. So some small percentage, a fee percentage, can remain in the pool. That benefits LPs. The fees can be directly distributed to LPs. The fees could go to the treasury, right? That's very simple. That benefits the protocol. The fees.
Sorry, we lost Colin again, but you could read it by yourself. That the variety, how to use fees generated by pool are pretty rich, and as you can see, the Omnipool or Hydra is like cash flow machine, and basically LHDX is buffer for use flowing through the system. HDX holders as a governance body of the whole infrastructure and whole protocol has many ways how to earn on these cash flows. So anyone who was telling that you are redistributing just like valueless, useless governance token isn't right, because the substrate governance modules or runtime upgrades in any substrate chain are so powerful that you can choose everything. And that was also the reason why we need to do this split to preserve governance security of HDX and keep it only for like contributors like all of you who were in the LBP and or anyone who earns it via grants, and not to allow whales who don't play nicely when they want to break some system or game some system. But let's finish the presentation. Colin?
Hear me now? Sorry, it sounded like you stopped being able to hear me.
Yes, now.
You're good now? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you summarized well the swap idea. Like, and in particular, what I would look at is the fact that HDX token holders can vote to divert some fees from one of these legs to HDX token holders, right? And that's kind of the ultimate, to me, like the setup of the system, both the LHDX and HDX system is governed by HDX holders. And most likely, what will wind up being the best setup, right? What will wind up working best is a system in which LHDX accrues some value and HDX accrues value. But that'll sort of be in the long run, as things evolve, that'll be decided by HDX holders as they can vote to set these sorts of fees at the levels that appear to work. So that's sort of my summary of this. And then the last slide is just a summary with some key points. So maybe we can finish with that.
Exactly. Basically, we can't go go public and shout everywhere like, oh, HDX will be redistributing fees and cash flows and everything. Obviously, it might be a case when community and governance will vote for it. But on the other hand, like all the food that HDX became after this change useless is like just food and not actual true, because HDX was actually never stronger than now. So let's wrap it up.
So I think from that we'll move back over to the stage so that we've got better control of that, and that opens it up to more people as well, because we've got people who want to join in who can't because of the cap on general. So we'll move across to that now, and we'll move on to the next bit.
Yeah, sure. Colin? Or yeah, let's move to the stage. I think everyone has a chance to read those 4 sentences.
Okay, that's great. So I think it'd be really useful if perhaps you could give an overview of the sort of work we've been doing over time that led us to get to that 2-token design. Now that we've given everyone a sort of an introduction to how it works, a broad overview, how that 2-token system works, perhaps a bit more detail in terms of the journey that we took to get there.
Sure. So yeah, there are still people in the like general voice chat. So let's wait until they migrate. Yeah, so great. So we did a little bit cumbersome, but still overview of these like latest changes. So now I will try to describe as as simple as possible our like thinking behind it and why we had to do these changes. So the main issue or concern with like the previous design is that like imagine that some like DeFi whales like SBF or Justin Sun, like they are just like examples with who many of you might be familiar that there are like whales coming from liquidity mining to another liquidity mining and disrupting these like incentive schemes a lot. So imagine that these guys wants to increase power over whole protocol, no matter if from the like short-term perspective or long-term perspective, same as they acquired a lot of power in sushi or in any other protocols via liquidity mining. But in our case, it might be even worse because the security of proof of stake protocols is usually very high, because if anyone wants to buy a lot of any proof of stake token out there, like no matter if Polkadot, Kusama, Solana, whatever is proof of stake, as more and more is bought from the market because of slippage and fees, these like any additional purchases are becoming more harder because the price start to increase a lot. Actually, because of like design of Omnipool, this won't be a case, because some whale or group of whales can just deploy a lot of capital to Omnipool, which will increase size of the Omnipool immediately. So when they will have, for example, I don't know, like 50,000 Bitcoin or how much, and a shit ton of ETH or just shit ton of stable coins, or I don't know, maybe someone in Tether will print a shit ton of Tether, will put it to the Omnipool. Omnipool in that in that time will match the size of the liquidity they put it. So the pool will be huge. So that means the slippage would be like almost zero in any big, even in any big trade. So even when they will start to buy with millions HDX, they wouldn't move price anyhow. So this is even bad for like HDX holders who wants to see some value appreciation over time. But this is also bad from the like security point of view of whole protocol, because someone can perform attack which would be very different, which would be much cheaper than attacking any other proof of stake or governance systems, because there would be no limitations on HDX token, the main one, which is supposed to have the power over governance. And even they don't need to even like supply a lot of liquidity to the pool, because in pool can be supplied billions of assets for the liquidity mining. And we wouldn't, if they would be smart and patient, no one would be even like possible to identify these efforts and differentiate them from like normal liquidity mining and performing this attack. So as we were more and more deeply thinking about this, and when we saw the current curve wars, and when we saw, like, for example, magic internet money used for draining Anchor yield reserves and other these other these initiatives when we see that as governance is hard and often not like most exciting thing in crypto, the attacks on the governance actually can be it can have like very low threshold, which is quite scary from us, as we are taking the overall security of platform as serious as possible, which also leads to all the delays with front ends on Basilisk, because like most of the code, like 80%, will be used in Hydra as well. So with also like DeFi hacks via front end, as we are approaching launches of both protocols finally a lot, and this year we will finally go live after a long time. We were rethinking everything like even more seriously than before. So we realized that, oh shit, like this might be dangerous as fuck. So and we had like long discussions internally about like if we will introduce the second token and how it will introduce, because I was betting, I was actually expecting that this situation will happen, that people will be confused. Obviously, no one expected that it will even cause like very ugly food, that we are doing some like rug pull on you, or I don't know. It was like obviously not nice, and not even close to true. So yeah, that's the story behind it, and now I hope that everybody is understanding why we did it, and why is it actually bullish even for HDX. Why LHDX will still have like very strong position in the protocol, and that's all. Like now we can move to like questions.
So just in summary on that, then really is governance on .sam is not the same as you'd expect in any Ethereum chain. Pretty much the terms can be changed for anyone, everyone.
Yeah, just for example, the DYDX governance token or OpenSea governance tokens, for example, they don't have much power over the underlying protocols, and for example, DYDX team was very clear from the beginning that via DYDX governance process and voting with DYDX, you would be never able to turn on fee distribution from DYDX protocol. So yeah, on the other hand, you can even like choose to switch from Polkadot to connect to Cosmos or whatever, will token holders vote for it, and someone will prepare code for it, which isn't hard if you really want to do that. So the runtime upgrades are super powerful and useful. On the other hand, you need to take them seriously, as they can change basically everything.
So a question that we had from Councillor Girk was the utility and potential value of HDX taken into consideration when choosing to go with a 2-token model? And if so, what's being employed to offset any potential loss of intrinsic value for HDX? So there were several other questions that sort of were similar. And in summary, it was this question where, what benefits of this 2-token design? Obviously, we've covered the protection from whale games and things like that, but are there any things you can do with HDX, or can you cover some of the sort of economic incentives or sort of models we might look at?
Yeah, exactly. I described it in like few minutes ago. That basically, actually, even like value appreciation of HDX would be much harder if in the protocol would be supplied 1 billion of assets, which is our aspiration from the day one, obviously, because it would be almost impossible to move price higher, because the slippage would be zero even in the like trades buying millions of HDX at once. So
like whatever the pool token is, which in the sort of slides I was describing is now LHDX, whatever that sort of central token is, has a sort of supply that can vary dramatically. And in particular, the concern with the sort of one token potential design was that if, you know, in the situation where the protocol succeeds and we have a whole lot of liquidity come in, that if HDX were the central token, then every HDX holder, like basically the HDX supply goes way up. That gets minted, and like it dilutes everyone who is holding HDX, right? And so that sort of that alignment between like, okay, the protocol succeeds, therefore tons of HDX get minted and everybody gets kind of diluted, was sort of maybe the obstacle. And I think that the second token, the LHDX token, allowing that to take the sort of supply volatility, if you will, gives us a stronger sort of tokenomics system. I wouldn't look at HDX and LHDX as sort of having a zero-sum competition of features, right? With the right design, it can be kind of a positive sum. And so I think that's sort of a better way to think of it, is what's the right combination for the features for these two tokens to have that lets the system work well, in which case, you know, that's really what should happen is when the system works well, the value of being able to make decisions about, you know, what token gets added to this protocol, for example, or do we, you know, where exactly are fees distributed? If the fees are higher, then the value of having that governance should certainly go up.
yeah, exactly. I was like historically always against just pure governance tokens. I really hate them because to me it was like really dishonest to community to give them some token which is meant to govern something, but on the other hand doesn't really have power to change anything, like we see in like with OpenSea token or the HydraDX token. But it's not the case in Hydra. You can choose, you can really change everything and choose where to extract value and where not. So that's also to be decided by community and by research. What would be the best way how to benefit from whole infrastructure and liquidity for HDX.
Okay, I think that broadly covers a lot of the questions that I'd gathered from the community. So I think now would probably be a good time to open up the floor for community questions. So anybody who would like to ask a question, if you can raise your hand and we'll start going through those and see if we can answer your questions.
Sure. Hello.
Hey, I had a question, you guys. Is it did the governance decision to make HDX the governance token to really make sure governance couldn't be taken over by liquidity providers and wouldn't have all these issues? Is that similar to like what's going on with the curve wars, how people are really trying to tighten up on the governance of the token because they're actually deciding where the liquidity goes? Is that kind of a similar thing where we're just making sure big whales can't come in and then, you know, do fun and games with the protocol? Thank you.
Basically, yes. Yeah, that's like more. That was also a wake up call for us. So
So does that maybe make sense why some people I know had questions like, oh my goodness, you know, this just feels like it's out of the blue. Was this the thing the whole time? I don't know. It seems to me like you all just kind of looked at it and said, oh shoot, we should probably address this. And the two token system just seemed like an obvious solution that was really secure long term.
Yeah, like we were thinking about it from the beginning, but the curve wars and other like governance hijinks was for us like last wake up call that okay, we can't let it just for like randomness, or just pray that it didn't happen to us. Like everywhere where is like huge stakes, huge money at stake, there will be people who will try to game that system, and it's always happening with everything.
Amen. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Maybe I could say that. Hello, everybody. I could say that we were thinking about these problems from the beginning, and we had actually some solutions in place to mitigate these, like doing fees or changing slightly the model of the Omnipool. But every solution brought problems to the design. And for instance, if we change the Omnipool design, it was too complicated to compute transactions on chain. It would be much less efficient in trading, and the second solution would, for example, hinder oracles, because there would be huge spreads on HDX. So we were thinking about limiting buying HDX from the pool, but it was not ideal. And this was in the end the best solution, I think, and even better, because this in the end limits the supply of HDX, which the previous design did not. So
yeah, like even from the like early days in like before LBP, I was feeling bad that people were often sometimes asking about it, and retrospectively the answers from us were like conflicting, but on the other hand like honest, that we will use this time until we will go live to decide to research and decide the best solution how for it.
And we're talking an awful lot of research here. We're not just talking internal discussions. The collab work you're doing with block science. This is hundreds of hours of making.
Yeah, exactly. They are also like very deep. Actually, they are like very deep in governance. And for example, they were actually modeling governance attacks in Gitcoin, in the Gitcoin community. Yeah.
Faisal, did you want to ask your question, mate?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Yeah. So I don't have a question about the two tokens. I think I need to rewatch this presentation to fully understand it. But I have a question about the onboarding of new tokens. Do you have an idea? I mean, since you don't want to have toxic tokens in the Omnipool, do you have an idea about the conditions or prerequisites of adding new tokens? Are we going to focus first on the big ones like DOT, Ethereum, and such, or are we also going to give chance to the smaller tokens? And how frequently do you expect to be adding those tokens? Are we talking about 1 per week or 10 per week? What's the frequency?
Yeah, I was thinking about this lately a lot. I think we can do some like very practical shortcut to focus on majors and blue chips which are, for example, included in some indexes, same as you have like DPI, the DeFi index, or whatever is listed on MakerDAO, Compound, Aave, all the tokens which pass their like security reviews. I trust them like a lot, because these teams, they have like internal security audit teams who were like doing like super deep dive in all the risk in like all risk all possible risk associated with these tokens. So all of them which are like higher tens are pretty safe. Then the all layer ones which would be possible to breach, and most legit projects from them, these are okay. And I can imagine that some like legit teams with even like newer projects can can be listed faster. So like imagine that some team with like quality of I don't know, like Akala or Interlay would like pop up in the ecosystem, and we will see that they are doing like great job on every side, and they have like security audits after them. Then there's like no wait to there's like not much reason to wait like 1 year or 2 years until they will be good. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you.
But obviously there would be some like volume requirements, which we also can get from other oracles.
We could also use Basilisk to gauge if the asset has enough volume or is safe enough for us. But we are thinking about mechanisms in the future that might allow us to list even less secure assets into the Omnipool, but they will be constrained by liquidity so that they are not like a huge risk to other assets.
Yes, the key would be like aggregate multiple oracles. So like Chainlink is kind of battle tested, but still like not a lot of people is okay with them. So then we can like aggregate a few other oracle sources.
Right. Mark, did you want to ask your question now?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, guys. Yeah, I've got 2 questions. Question number 1 is the whole DEX and DeFi market has become pretty crowded over the last years. So various DEXs on different chains. So what is your marketing strat? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you were muted. You need to start over. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I listen.
I thought. So question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I listen everything. I heard everything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I repeated. I have 2 questions. So the DEX market on various chains has become very crowded. So what is your basically marketing strategy to gain a sustainable, let's say, liquidity on Hydra in this market environment? And question number 2 is the Omnipool seems to be a pretty nice honeypot for hacks. So how do you assess the risk actually to drain the liquidity of the Omnipool, and what are your mitigation measures? Thank you.
I think Jakub, you can do the actually second question, and I will get back to the first one.
Yeah, so basically the first thing is to not even list assets that are not secure, but we are thinking about multiple measures. One would be fee that is based on volume. So if there is a huge sell pressure on one token, and you would increase the fee maybe to the infinity, so that you cannot drain a pool in a short time. And then there will be like we are thinking about a stop button, which will be a governance process. If something happens and it's really bad, we should have this measure to be able to stop if enough people is deciding to do this, which I don't know if other projects have this
It's basically called circuit breaker. Like I have also some like vision about some like how to do like decentralized custody in like more safer way, but we need to wait for this on Entropy, which is one of the coolest substrate project, but under the radar, which would which would make trading much more safer, because basically the all assets would be custodied elsewhere, maybe on the state mine and state mint, and Polkadot and Dotama DeFi would be using just claims on them, and there would be some like withdrawal period to have some like buffer if like any hack will happen, or like any flaw or bug in code will happen, not just in Hydra or Basilisk, but in like bridges or XCM or other components or networking or whatever. So and then obviously these like standard ones like security audits as much as possible, like trying to formally verify code, etc. So we are trying to get these companies who are specializing on it, but they have like shit ton of work with in different ecosystems, obviously mostly in Ethereum. And the first question was the strategy behind us to be to be successful, or yeah. So the short term ones are obviously liquidity mining initiatives, which won't be subsidized just by us, but we see like many DeFi projects in Dotama will propose their own incentives. So there will be like waterfall of incentives for Dotama users. There are also some like talks about incentivizing bootstrapping of liquidity in whole ecosystem via Kusama and Polkadot Treasury. Actually, Polkadot Treasury is for it a better candidate, or more hardest candidate, as all these like bigger stakeholders in Dotama ecosystem, they are very much aware that the ecosystem is pretty behind other ecosystems, and we need to push harder on every front. And the big incentives programs were successfully used by most of relevant alternative ecosystems to Ethereum. So there is no other way around of it. Then like midterm and long-term solutions would be bonds, a little bit similar to Olympus bonds, but ours will be like very different. They will be much more similar to traditional bonds, as in Olympus you have just like bonds with duration of 5 days. Actually, we will have something like auctions, which will be incentivizing bonds with maturity as long as possible. So there might be people who can choose to lock their liquidity in Hydra for years. I would probably do that as well, which will offer the highest APY, and then you can have like secondary market for these bonds. You can use these bonds as a collateral on Angular or maybe other money markets, because bonds are much more superior to liquidity, to keeping liquidity than liquidity mining initiatives. Most of them are actually like very wasteful. This is like another observation from Curve Wars, where you have like deployed billions of dollars value in some pools, while these pools are generating just a few $1,000s in fees per day, and our volume is much smaller, so the slippage is very negligible. So you don't really need to incentivize pools to have like to be like swollen as fuck. But what you actually need to incentivize is usage. So we will introduce volume incentives actually, which makes much more sense, because and it's nothing really like unique or groundbreaking, because all centralized exchanges, and I don't mean just like crypto centralized exchanges, but stock exchanges or any kind of exchanges in the world were using this for whole of their history, incentivizing market makers or any other parties who are able to produce volume on their markets to be there and offer them, like, for example, fee rebates or even like negative rebates. So they are actually making money on producing volume there, because if you have liquidity pools with billions of assets who are just like sitting there and no one is really using them for trading or swapping assets or values, isn't really like useful, but wasteful. And this is not just focused on like incentivizing market makers to be there and trade as much as possible, but this is also incentivizing integrations to plug to Hydra and Basilisk and use some of our features, like for example enabling users to pay fees on like destination protocol or destination dApp with whatever asset which they want to pay. Like for example, users of some wallet needs to do some smart contract call on, I don't know, maybe Plasm or even Ethereum or elsewhere, but they don't want to pay fees in this like more scarce asset, and they want to have like predictable costs for it. So Hydra and Basilisk can like provide for them this like service on the backend actually. So users would be able to pay with stablecoins whenever they want, and with whatever wallet which will integrate our SDK. Like this was like one of the first obvious use cases which we had finished and prepared on the backend for a long time, because we saw that AMMs are actually perfect for this use case, for improving crypto UX. So this is like clear incentive for other dApp developers to plug to us. This is the one thing. And the second thing, move forward our design and improve it over time, introduce some other features which we had in pipeline. Like I even made like short list of features which we were proposing from early days of Hydra, and which was implemented in other protocols by other teams, very similarly or in like different fashion, but still like validating a lot of our ideas in the market, which is great. So we can't wait till we will put them together in like more meaningful way to improve capital efficiency of DeFi as much as possible. So yeah, this is the longer question and actually a longer answer. Sorry for that. Probably most of you might be lost there, but we will actually release in the next weeks updated roadmap with these like granular points which will outline our strategy for 2022 and further.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I didn't expect this alpha to land.
There's all publicly available information. There was Marcos and Jimmy want to ask.
Okay, I have two questions. Okay, the first one, I believe that almost everybody agreed that the time to announce the new token was not so good because it was in the middle of the crowd loan and the holiday. So my question is, what's the team's plans to improve the communication from now on? Because this could cost Hydra spot in Polkadot. Sometimes I feel that there is a a whole between the team and the community, because we don't have so much information about the project sometimes, the status. My question is what the team thinks about it, if I'm wrong, or if you are aware and you are planning to do something. And the next question is where we are in the HydraDX development. If we are in the UA phase, and where we are in the HydraDX development. So those are my two questions.
Yeah, great questions. Thanks for your honesty and very on point. Yeah, like the the issues with communication. So we had almost whole our history, because until now we were like super small team, like for the like 6 guys being on top of everything and testing and integrating all the newest stuff from Polkadot substrate and the parity kitchen and doing all these like bleeding edge research. But fortunately, and there was also a lot of missing positions in our organization, which we were realizing just lately, unfortunately, because we were maybe too deep in research or backend development. So the solution for it was basically most of the November and December we were onboarding great people who can fill these like holes in the organization, not just on the development positions, but actually exactly in the like communications and like organizing, governance, later operations, and in general more professionalizing everything, because as we are heading to start, like the startup culture or startup life needs to more settle and be more cautious about all changes. The last fuck up with block just highlighted importance to think more deeply how it will look for like for people who are less initiated or less involved in the project, so they don't understand all the nuances. So everything will be, so every other major changes will be communicated, we will at least pick randomly some people from community and ask for feedback. And with moving development to more open, even more open source fashion, like we had open source almost everything, but practically or from like development process point of view, we're not super ready for it, as we were trying it also mostly from the beginning of the year, and it wasn't like very effective because you need to have like bigger organization and much more granular task and much better analyze these tasks, and everything would be done. There was also like missing people for doing this, which we finally resolved. So there is no like silver bullet for it, but as we are opening everything, I think we are working on it to make it better, like basically with publishing the strategy for this year and updated roadmap. That would be the point from which everything will be like public or community first, as in the time also there will be bumped development capacities and capacities or like roles who who will take care more about like community development, or who will be able to onboard new people faster. So basically, even like even like aggregating all our research and specifications was like very challenging for new people, which we finally did. And the reason why in past there was like holes between us and you, where until now we were moving like too quickly sometimes, like trying to be first on Rococo and then try to do the first the cross-chain calls and transfers, and then be first in like first parachains badge, and implement Cumulus and everything, and in the meantime do all this like crazy and hard research. So yeah, I don't want to excuse, but that was basically like too much for us, and we were like constantly lacking not just more like developers, but also these like non-developers positions. And as we were onboarding like enough developers lately, we also like identified that we need more these like non-developers positions for operations, and for outreaching other people, and help us with like crazy amount of like external communication. There is like basically we have like hundreds of channels between not just you, I don't mean just in like community, but with all other projects who wants to integrate with us, who wants to cooperate with us, who wants to work with us, who wants to do some like joint research, joint development, joint liquidity mining, etc. So that was not like intention to hide anything from you, but there was basically like too many things in parallel, which is finally getting better. And excuse me, what was the second question?
It was the state of the development, and I can maybe answer that. So, as Jakub said, we took a step back because we needed to hire more people, and we had like we could release something, but we shortly realized by just seeing a few people, for example, to go to some crowd loan pages, that it crashes and the nodes cannot keep up, that we need to like rebuild the infrastructure and cooperate with another projects on it. So what we did is we took a step back. We started working with Subsquid on indexers and processors to give users proper data so that they can use the applications and they will be fast and performant. But everything in this sense, even like DevOps, like spinning up these instances and stuff like that, and making everything decentralized, it was much more effort than we expected to just launch. But we decided to do it because it will be like a long-term thing that will help us in the future. We basically, by doing this, we are preventing like just supporting everybody that something doesn't work, because it will still probably happen in the beginning, but it will be much less, because we knew that if 5,000 people comes to our page in the latest architecture, it will just crash like everybody else's, and nobody will use it, and it will be shit. So we decided to do the step back and just rebuild everything from the ground up, build proper infrastructure, and everything from this can actually be like 90% of this can be used for Hydra. So we're not just doing it for Basilisk, but this is like reusable stuff mostly that we'll be able to utilize, and it will greatly reduce the time to ship the state. And I don't want to give dates or anything, because we did the mistake before, and it was a huge change. But I expect it will not be as long as some people might think based on what I just said.
Yeah, for the Hydra, Colin shipped the final specification for Omnipool, which is again double checked and validated by block science. But basically, developers are starting to work on it, and for the implementation and actually like implementation of, we realized the implementation of Hydra is much easier. It's just one product than Basilisk, and as Jakub mentioned before, like a lot of like important middleware will be recycled, as is like very familiar to it. So
yeah, so and that's exactly what I was going to add on to that, is that on the sort of Omnipool side, we're at the stage of, and we've already done a little bit of this, but we're going to sort of model out the fees, right? So the basic structure is locked in, and now we're at the stage of doing, modeling around where and how high our fees should be, such that, comparing to what's going to make us competitive in terms of attracting trade volume and competitive in terms of liquidity. So since the sort of structure is now set, that's basically ready to be implemented.
Just to clarify, my question was not put to you against you. The wall was was just to the community understand why we have these communication issues. Sometimes this stuff happen with me to be too much delivery oriented and don't talk too much with the customer. So if I may suggest something, I don't know if it's possible, but maybe provide monthly updates to the community, like a high level update. Probably use you use some Scrum thing that you can just copy and paste and share with the community, maybe once a month. I believe it's like a defense for the team, because when sometimes stuff delayed, it looks that you are not working, but I know that's not true, but it's hard to explain if we have nothing actually to show. I don't know if I'm clear. I'm from Brazil, not speak English fluently, but what I'm trying to say is that have maybe a high level update from time to time will show that you are working hard, because I know that you are, to all the community, and maybe can calm down things a little bit. It's just a suggestion. You don't need to answer, but it's just an input. Okay. Thanks for your reply.
no, you are totally right. The communication and updates were shit. We were just like, yeah, it was too much going on in parallel. Also, like last months of like too much traveling, which was not for this like sake of traveling, but to meet to. It was like basically like bet that if COVID will hit world again like too much and cause like global lockdowns, it would be great to meet people with which we were working before or will be working in person and build a better relationship, which was successful, which happened and was like very useful, and the outcomes from it will come in next months. But back to the better communication, that after release of strategy, basically the update strategy and milestones, basically every the whole operation will be structured in much better way. There will be like increased accountability, not just inside the operations, but also outside. Every features will be like much more granular, and there will be like much more visible where we are now in like every piece of project. Like until now, there was like too much unknown unknowns, which we finally resolved, and only from that point we were able to break things to really like small pieces, which took shit ton of time and caused these delays. On the other hand, it means that, for example, people who wants to join development or research or whatever would be able to see like very specific things to fix or build or create without being lost and without us needs to onboard them for like weeks or even like months, which is very common thing, especially in Substrate ecosystem, as Substrate and Polkadot are basically huge spaceships, and often even like their creators or their like core developers, they don't know everything because it's such big. so TLDR, how it will better, that everything will be like much more granular and structured more specifically. But it was not possible until now because there was like too much unknowns. And it's not promising. It's not like over promising or promise to community. It's basically to you to just like calm you down. It's basically totally necessary to have open project and open source development and real community project, because I was digging a lot to other, for example, DAOs or even like companies, and I realized that no matter if it's DAO or company or corporation or whatever, the biggest issue all the time and why all these organizations, no matter if centralized or decentralized, are struggling to move from original founders to, for example, to their kids or external managers, etc., is because no one fully understands the vision for the project and where is it all heading, where is it going in the next weeks, next months, and etc., because no one also knows as much details, and no one ever could spend so much thinking about it. But as we put this finally publicly and open, as finally Omnipool design already is like base model for it is finally settled, then we can start this process. So what I want to say is like totally it's not just like promising to be more open, but basically it's a necessary step for us to make it practical.
And then, as you said, like the weekly or monthly updates, it sounds easy, but when you are 6 people or 7 people, then you need to take shortcuts and you need to teach something, because if you are working overtime a lot, then you need to choose what to do. And more like we were choosing to finish the stuff because we wanted to ship it. But right now we saw that we just need to grow a lot to be able to do everything, and we did. And it will be much better from this point on. We will be like we'll be able to delegate more stuff and not do everything. And so,
but even as we are not 6 of us anymore, but much more like we grow from 6 maybe to 24 or something, to let everyone just tell his his or her updates for, I don't know, for even like for 5 minutes. You can count it as like 24 times 5. It's when I'm attending like developers calls, it's like it's stretching sometimes to like even like 2 hours. So that's also the reason why with upcoming changes will be the whole project and its organization will be structured to subgroups or groups, the smaller groups of people, responsible for specific things like front-end, middleware, infrastructure, innovations, backend, security, research, governance, hiring, etc. So as any other businesses are doing, there's no need to reinvent wheel.
Exactly, and don't get us wrong. We have experience with startups and growing, but this is normal stuff. I guess the communications was like the worst we did, because in normal startups you don't have it at all. You just talk to your investors and they're okay all the time, mostly, if you're doing good. And this was something new, and I think we will do much better in the future. I want to do it. So
Yeah, like I remember the last AMA actually in October, Jesus, or September. It's what a shit ton of time when where I was actually promising that there will be AMAs like bi-weekly to actually have these like updates for you. But then as I was more in airplanes or on airports than house. It was I didn't have even like internet connection, and sometimes I was quite alienated even from our team. So it was really like hard time this like end of the year. Yeah, many hotels have shitty Wi-Fi. Which reminds me another fact that we were traveling for the like your experience, which wasn't also true, but anyway. But yeah, thanks for the honesty, great feedback. We are aware of it, and that's the point of January, to finally be more professional and structured, as there is no other way around. Or yeah, there is a way around to be like closed source and close to us, and not let you to do, and not let you to see in our kitchen. But as we already see this first settlements with SEC chasing DeFi projects, yeah, there is like no other way around to then be truly decentralized.
which I don't want to hinder, even if it wasn't like SAC. So I would want to be decentralized anyway. And I'm sure you too, but it was just like
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, Jimmy, sorry for waiting 1 hour for asking something.
No worries. Hello, guys, and thank you very much for organizing this AMA. I was also the one who was a little bit stressed out and confused after they released the article, when after some silence we jump out of the blue with such news. But thanks again for clearing the clouds and at least for me, making all ideas and motivation for the change understandable and clear. I just had two questions. One is when you mentioned about adding the assets to the Omnipool, I wanted to ask, will this be made on the procedure of in the beginning of acceptance, for example, of technical committee from the governance, or and later, for example, made upon the, I don't know, proposal, referenda, and governance decisions made by HDX holders? And the second question would be also at some time of your presentation, Jakub, you said that HDX holders will be accruing the fees from the protocol. The fees will be distributed to the HDX holders. If I understand this right, and if yes, could you maybe put some more lights on this? How the mechanics would be would look like in the reference of this distribution. Will users have to stake HDX somewhere, or the fees will be distributed to the holders in some way of dividends or something like that? So if you could give more lights on that, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks. Let me clarify real quick since I put those slides together and sort of did the talk. The fees, so we don't have fully fleshed out the details of what the fees will look like on mainnet launch. I was giving a list of examples of what could be enabled, and like the point was really that even if we start with no distribution to HDX holders, that's something that at some point, since HDX tokens are used to govern the protocol, and this relates to what Kuba was talking about in terms of with Substrate, you really have the ability to change a lot with these runtime upgrades. So something that would be really easy for HDX holders to vote to change would be to raise a fee to be distributed to HDX holders, right? So what I'm trying to articulate is that the mechanism, there's a mechanism for HDX holders to see that the LHDX HDX pair is not quite working. Somehow it's not working well enough for HDX holders. And since that's the governance token, they have the ability to tweak those tokenomics. So I do want to clarify that list was possible places for fees to go, and not like this is what's going to happen on day one. Just to make that clarification.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that. And then, what will be the procedure or the mechanics of distribution of the potential distribution of the fees if if, for example, like the governance will decide that they want to raise the fees from the protocol, and then it goes is accepted with the runtime upgrade. So after such decision and such runtime upgrades, how the mechanics would like so the HDX holders will have to provide the HDX liquidity to get to be rewarded the fees, or how this do you have any idea?
I think that's to be determined. I know that, and Kubo, you can jump in here. I know we've been looking at like the V curve sort of setup.
So we'll have fee mechanics, and fees will be collected in some place. It will be either treasury or some secondary treasury, depending on what we choose, and like token holders will choose. And once we have that treasury, we can allow, or like people can allow themselves to get a part of it.
Fee distribution in crypto is always like tricky because you don't want to fail. You don't want to become. You don't want to provoke regulators to become like clear security. So I think the like regulatory framework or feedback on it is like just pure redistribution of fees is like clear security. So we will fine you or we will shut you down. So the crypto workaround is buybacks, which is like kind of indirect redistribution, or buyback and burn model, or curve model with weighted escrow curve, which we see that it's becoming like standard, and also like many of these protocols who are adopting this model, they were also like I think investing a lot in like lawyer analysis or legal analysis of this model, if it's okay, and it looks like it's okay, or at least even if we will implement it, we won't be like, and there will be like better targets. to target. So yeah, so this was always the case. So you need to do some work to enjoy the reward, and that work is actually materialized by having governance power and voting for proposals. So that's the point. That's the point of VE curve model, which is like the best candidate for us to implement, because it's something which is which what is overall crypto community already like very familiar. So at least one time we won't be confusing people with like too innovative things.
Cool. Thanks for that. Thank you
And
very
the
much.
first question, right now it's technical committee, but maybe we would like to ditch technical committee and maybe also council, because also of the regulators. And I don't know if we form some committee that will be able to assess the readiness of the assets, or if we in time could find a mechanism that will be able to mitigate almost all of the risks listing a new token to the Omnipool. So if we can find something that is mostly automated, we will do it. But probably like full on governance will be too cumbersome to do. I don't know. So this is to be decided first. At first, it will be probably technical committee, which is like it is technical committee right now to list new tokens in the Omnipool.
Actually, Gauntlet Network is providing this as a service to Compound. Like they are like measuring these like proper liquidity properties of assets, and then they are like, and it's their outcomes from their models is basically like setting over collateralization ratios, interest rates, etc. So I would like to have something like economic council, not just like technical council, who will be supposed for these like more economic questions, like for example, what should be the volume ratios, what should be the size of fees, where from which part take these fees, how to utilize protocol on liquidity. Maybe Hydra governance can redirect some of their dots to some like crowd loans, and the reward from these crowd loans use as a liquidity in Hydra and recycle it, and all these other more like economic questions with support from like technical committee who will be responsible to assess like technical security of these assets, and I hope that these committees will be built from like from the best people in the industry, and happy to vote for very nice wage for them to do this.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for that, and I know that you had some discussion and then thoughts about some, you can say like sub DAOs or specialized DAOs, which can be, specializing themselves in, for example, governance, for example, economical DAOs and stuff like that. And maybe if there will be some like specialized DAOs on the horizon forming up, will you be guys considering operation or considering some kind of mechanics or design with such sub-DAO mechanics, for example, or sub-DAO governance, for example, in the economical or more technical committee?
Yeah, if it will be something like that existing, it would be dream. It would be great. What I'm aware of right now is only token engineering community. They are kind of DAO in these questions, but right now more focusing on teaching people and learning token engineering and everything related stuff. But if there is any DAO like that, developers DAOs looks to be quite promising. Yeah, but I meant more as a like, not like DAOs, but more as a like specific groups or like smaller groups of people responsible for specific tasks in Hydra or even Snack to be responsible and accountable for, but also like incentivized for to deliver best outcomes and outputs for it. Because the issue with DAOs and crypto governance is that the questions on which are token holders voting are often like too nuanced and too advanced that like the average holder can't assess like if this token should have these properties or these fees. Like if someone will tell me right now that, oh Jakub, like the DOT token should have fee 0.2 and not 0.15, I wouldn't know like what is better or not without having expert or data analyst who will give me like results from or data from 50 other exchanges where it's dot listed or something like that. But this work should be professionalized, same as we have like parliament democracies and we are voting or we are supposed to work for the like professionals or for the like politicians who should put in place the best professionals. But it's obviously not the case in most of democracies, right? Because like broken game theory and incentives there, but we can do it better.
I can say it in Poland now. Thanks.
I guess this is one of the most interesting things, but it's one of the hardest ones. So let us first fix the liquidity, and then we can focus on these nuances. I guess we can do something good with it.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, for all of the answers. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Anyone else wanted to ask anything?
Before we wrapped up, there was another question that didn't get asked. I was hoping somebody's going to jump up, but first of all, it looks like Faisal wants to ask another question. But I haven't. I do have a question from someone earlier.
Yeah, hi. I have a question about staking nominating validator. My concern is that when we go to the mainnet, the fear of slashing is going to get real. I mean, it's not real in testnet, but it's going to get real in the mainnet. And I hear a lot of messages, or I read a lot of messages, not a lot, but some messages on Discord of some validators saying, hey, I'm not getting into the active set, I'm not getting subscribers, I'm logging off. So I'm wondering, will that lead to slashing? Because obviously one of the causes of slashing is going offline. So I was thinking, like, do you think like this is an issue? Would that make people afraid to stake? Would that reduce potentially the validators? Because obviously we want more stakers, more validators to strengthen the network. Is there like a mechanism for when someone or when a validator goes offline or wants to go offline, that he unstakes whoever subscribed or unsubscribes whoever subscribed, so that he can go offline without any kind of slashing?
So to answer,
I know you spend some effort in naming the validators, put the real names and emails, but for myself, like, unless he's my neighbor, I'm not gonna trust that person.
So the last part of the questions, yes, you can stop taking if you want to go offline. That's normal. You can do it right now. So if you want to go offline and upgrade your node, you are even encouraged by it. But the second part, like the first part of the question, we will probably not have staking as you see it right now coming through the mainnet, because the notion of shared security means that we don't need to do it actually. So the most we have been thinking about staking and use of it in mainnet, but right now as it is, we'll probably not need it in the beginning. And that means that we will only need node runners, and they need to be just offline. So there will be no people like exactly doing this kind of thing like they are doing right now. And this is maybe bigger concern because we need to find out what to do with all the people that are currently validating. But we have the solution, which is maybe too soon to talk about, but we want to decentralize infrastructure and not just backend infrastructure or node infrastructure, but also front-end infrastructure. And we will probably have incentive schemes for running this infrastructure. But right now, I think it's too soon to talk about it, and we'll to like polish it moving through onto the mainnet.
In that case, actually slashing won't be so harsh or even possible, because like the worst outcome of node isn't available. In that case, would be that the user will switch to another node automatically, not manually, obviously. But hearing you, it reminds me that there is also like still a big confusion in Polkadot and Substrate community about a role of validators and node runners, because actually the validators of parachains are Polkadot validators, so you don't need to have own validators as a parachain. What you need to have are collators, which needs to be like any. It can be actually one node. It could be like 10 nodes, 100, whatever. But these collator nodes can't do invalid state transition. So they are their security properties aren't so. Basically, their security isn't such important than validators. So the collators and full nodes are more as like service providers rather than like real validators of proof of stake networks, which you can see in proof of stake networks, or even like Polkadot relay chain validators or Kusama relay chain.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, you're welcome. But Substrate is offering a super powerful feature which is called off-chain workers, and these off-chain workers can be used for doing a lot of useful work, which can be parallelized or done off-chain, but still they would need to have some skin in the game to prove that or to make protocols safe that their computation was done correctly and can be included on chain. So for that part, there will be some staking included. And these off-chain workers can, for example, like match transactions. So it doesn't need to be done fully on-chain, but just like produce some like proof that it will happen and it could happen, or it could be even like zero knowledge proof to save a lot of storage, etc.
And maybe even just data providing. So like middleware nodes could provide data and they could have some stake, and they will like by this stake say that my data is correct, and if you can say that you are incorrect, we would slash you. So this is another use of stake, basically quote unquote staking that we could do.
Great. Donkey, you've been waiting for a little while. I don't know if you want to ask a question before I ask one last question to wrap up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So my question was actually just about your travels and kind of how you're feeling about the ecosystem in general. Kind of like what your perspective on Substrate is after working on it for a year. Has it been more or less powerful than you've thought? and kind of just how you see the interactions with other teams working out. I know you mentioned that KUSD may be one of the first coins that you pull into the Omnipool, but like what are the incentives from the Akala side to actually like encourage HydraDX use when they have their own swap functionality, that kind of stuff. So just how you see yourselves interacting with the ecosystem and where spirits are in that front.
Yeah, so this is great question. Like for example, in 2019, when we start substrate development, and then like early 2020 when we start build Hydra, we were like much more concerned about ecosystem because there were not many parachains, at least like visible or like planned. So at least this is not concern anymore. While on the other hand, what is a little bit concerning me personally is that I don't see much flow of new parachains or projects, to be honest. But this might change. But on the other hand, I see a lot of interesting substrate chains which are like very specialized in some like very unexpected use cases, at least before. So what is that like? I am much more bullish on substrate than any time before, speaking with a lot of other builders last years, especially even from the, like other ecosystems. And when I see how is it implement, how a lot of substrate ideas or parts are implemented elsewhere. Like obviously Cosmos SDK has better traction because Tendermint consensus is much older, so it's considered to be much more battle tested, and it was older and there wasn't like breaking changes all the time in 2019 and 2020. So many projects went that way as a more like stable solution for development. On the other hand, when you see that, for example, like Polygon is using substrate for the data availability chain, or Octopus network on Near protocol is using substrate for connecting application-specific chains to Near, or Compound choosing substrate, while not super happy about it, but also I see other like Cosmos developers having huge respect to substrate, and some of them even like choosing substrate for for their latest projects, or Ethereum or some like Ethereum developers who were developing before Ethereum 2.0 client actually going for substrate and being super happy and super hyped actually about off-chain workers and other substrate features, especially runtime upgrades. I was speaking a few weeks ago with guy who was organizing and made first hard fork of Cosmos. We agreed on how hard is to do hard fork in any chain or in any system, while any substrate chain, no matter if it's Polkadot, Kusama, or anything, is doing hard forks just like that, even like every 2-3 weeks. It's mental in comparison to other teams, to other projects, which I see as one of the underappreciated feature, because there was some mantra about like blockchains, how blockchain should be immutable as much as possible, but I don't think it's true, because even Bitcoin in 2018 or 2019 had like very critical inflation bugs, and you wouldn't expect that, because like it was like oldest code base and most simple blockchain, and still it had some like flaws who needs to be fixed ASAP, and they were like super critical. So, and even like Bitcoin blockchain, it at the end of the day, it still needs people to maintain the software, but also to maintain network, to provide energy for it, electricity. Like today we had 18 or 12% hash rate drop because there is currently a lot of mining concentrated in Kazakhstan, and there is something like a lot of protest in Kazakhstan because of like high energy costs and high inflation. So the government shut down, turned off basically internet. So they basically also cut off the mining pools there from accessing mining, from accessing Bitcoin blockchain. So what I want to tell, so what I want to say is basically that every chain is still at the end of the day just tool for people to coordinate and to do something. So you can't just, people can't just like disappear and let these like all immutable software to just run like that. No, they need to be maintained, and that's why I think the runtime upgrades and ability to evolve to something much better over time in a very elegant way is like probably the best killer feature which is Substrate offering. To the point, to the question about like ecosystem, like meeting many founders and especially their developers also made me more calm as I realize many of them are like 10x developers or like super talented people who go for the Substrate or Polkadot from other ecosystems like Algorand, Cosmos, and others. And they are actually great people, not just by knowledge or experiences, but as a persons as well. Obviously, there are people who are who are not so cool and who don't have such honest intentions to build something great, but more as like quick to do quick cash. But it's everywhere. But I am much more happy about ecosystem than I was before. But on the other hand, the ecosystem still has like many flaws, as it was like, I think it was like one of the hardest ecosystems to build out because like Avalanche and everything what is using EVM is doing great because of course you can fork anything what is living on Ethereum and doing great and just use it and put it in MetaMask and use Infura and use Truffle and Hardhead and everything. So the tooling is helping to any developers even on the like alternative chains to be like super quick and deploy things in weeks or months and live there. But while in Substrate and Polkadot, as there is not much proven or battle tested code which you can fork and iterate on top of it or improve it, was or still is issue. And also the tooling as Substrate Polkadot was changing too fast, what actually was also causing a lot of delays on our side. That a lot of tooling and infrastructure was outdated or not working very well. It was it was like very hard in 2019, 2020 and 2021 as well. On the other hand, I think it was just like a growing pain of any new ecosystem. Basically Solana was like last year or 2020 very much the same. Like it was like super hard to build something. There was no code to fork, there was no tooling, etc. It need to be just built. And on the other hand, I think it's a great opportunity for everyone who can see these issues, and instead of like bitching about these issues, to try a solution for it. And ask for a treasury for the grant for it. Actually, the treasury both in Polkadot and Kusama was never more full than now. So I think it will finally encourage enough people to ask for useful work for the ecosystem. So ecosystem has so the overall ecosystem has like as everything, things which are nice, things which are ugly, and but basically every ecosystem is like that. Like I was speaking with many founders from other ecosystems, and like everybody was complaining about something. So it is always the whole crypto is so early. Even like Ethereum is so early. There are still so many things missing or not done very well. So I think we should everyone see this like big opportunity rather than blocker, and help builders. Sorry, but I was talking too too long. Not sure if this answer your questions. There is no like easy or straightforward question about it. Like we just need to build this ecosystem, but it's improving a lot, and it's in the stage, or is in the like state which I wasn't expecting in 2019 and 20, and it was like much more concerning us. Like right now, when we see that parachains, shared security, and XCM, and all this stuff, which was also like fooded a lot by competition, is not the case anymore. It's like it's working, and now we can finally move to the phase of Polkadot and Substrate when most of the code will be refactored, optimized, and improved. There is like extreme amount of low-hanging fruit which could be solved and improved, which other ecosystems doesn't have. So I'm bullish more than ever, but other projects should more think about working together as a family instead of trying to build everything by themselves. Otherwise, there is no real ecosystem or point. Like they can go to build their own ecosystems. So yeah, it would be great to see better collaboration between teams, but it wasn't case until now because everybody like we were too busy with development of their own stuff. So yeah, but finally more teams are getting to the stage that they are trying integrations, which is great. Like Interlay is doing a lot of integrations. Finally, Moonriver and Moonbeam will have XCM. So they will Akala, Plasm, and a few other like the best teams are finally getting to the point that they are doing integrations with others. So we are getting there. We are getting to the point that ecosystem is really ecosystem and not just like collection of standalone chains.
I wanted to say something from technical standpoint, but Jakob said like 70% of my things, so I don't know if it's worthwhile. But I had like love relationship with Substrate. It's in the beginning it allowed us to really fast just spin up blockchain, which is unprecedented, and it's we've tried more stuff and we've seen more stuff before, but this was the fastest maybe. Then we needed to do something special, and it was really hard because there were really like a lot of updates, and that slowed us down. But this was growing pains, like Polkadot and Kusama needed to launch, so they needed to solve issues fast. They needed to go fast, so I understand it. And few times when we had issues, I was diving deep into the code and diving deep into the code of Substrate. And I was like thinking, oh shit, this has like million lines of code, but it's not like bloat code. It's really nice, concise code with research behind it and documentation. And I've seen some blog from Gavin, I think, lately that it has actually 2 million lines of code. So it's like huge help that you have and framework that you can use, and it's really powerful, and you can build on top of it, and you can swap stuff as you wish if you know it. It takes a lot of time to dive deep, and it took a lot of time because it was constantly changing. But right now we are speaking with Robert and people that are developing the substrate, and they are basically finished with basic functionality. They are just now making more performant, so it will not change as much. So if you just want to start building something on substrate, there was no better time. I mean, we know a lot because we started sooner, but you will not have the problems we had. And I wanted to encourage all of the founders that were like slightly discouraged by all of changes that slowed everybody down, and stuff was not ready. It was launched. It is not the case anymore. Like most of the stuff is done and ready. So if you are considering building something, you should right now. And I think it's really powerful, and I don't know a better way to build custom blockchain right now. And we are constantly looking at some other stuff, but yeah. So there are cons and pros to everything, but this is a really good ecosystem with killer developers and support, and I don't want to build anywhere else. So that's my substrate thing.
Lovely. Any question from Donkey?
I think Donkey's fallen asleep.
Yeah, probably.
No, that's great. Thank you for going through that. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Maybe last two questions to wrap it up, because also parallel integration is on fire.
Okay, can
They
you
want
hear
to
me?
announce. They want to announce it, and also we want to do some change. We want to make it better a little bit, so people in the parallel crowdloan website will see actual reward, not minimum, etc. So we would like to go back to work. But
Can I
Amma is great. Yeah,
ask my
sorry,
question?
man. I need to
Yes.
unmute you.
I am unmuted. Okay. Kubo spoke about family. So the Web3 grant you got, you fulfilled it. How intense is the cooperation with the Web3 Foundation now? And is there a support from, for example, Gavin Wood for HydraDX? And is the whole ecosystem waiting for the Omnipool, sees value in it, and is going to embrace it? What do you think?
I don't know how much he's aware of us. Probably, probably yeah. We are not much in touch actually with Web3 Foundation, more with Parity, because Web3 Foundation was more like funding and organizing research, but this research is implemented by Parity by end of the day. So Parity is I think even more important player in the ecosystem in some sense, or for the projects it would be better to be closer to them. Grant program is useful for the newcomers who see some opportunity of something missing in the ecosystem, some tooling, or if you want to develop something specific which can be useful for others and be paid for it, so it will a little bit decrease your costs on the development. But you shouldn't rely on the grants only if it's something super important, like I don't know, Bitcoin breach or Ethereum breach or something like that. So, and we had the grant for the validator node monitoring in 2019, but it wasn't prolonged. Actually, it wasn't prolonged from some weird reason, which at first pissed us a lot. then at least move us forward by choosing to build something which is not actually relying on grants too much. But yeah, like if you want to build something, what is missing in the ecosystem, asking for a grant is one of the best way what you can do. You have also some like guidance from them about how to build it, or if you choose the right path, then when you will be delivering it, you will be also guided if you deliver it in a correct way. Or are you referring to the like sub-auction grant, actually?
No, actually, I wanted to know if you worked also together, with Parity, of course, and if they are waiting for the product to see the value in it, to use it for the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, like their employees or like people working there, they are, at least like what they told me, they are like very bullish. On the other hand, as organizations, they are very cautious about like what they are communicating outside. They needs to stay credible, neutral, so they don't want to like hype or communicate much about some like specific projects to not create impression on communities or retail people that this is the chosen one, this is the right projects where you should put your money or something like that. Or sometimes the projects will, in other ecosystem, but also in Polkadot, they were using this as a like hype or marketing technique, like, oh, we get a grant from the Web3 Foundation, they are supporting us, or something like that, which was like very questionable if they can use it in.
And my question was not so much for the outside communication, but the talks you had and the impression you got. I mean, this is not a normal DEX or AMM. It's an innovative and should be disrupting technology. So you can understand if the other side, appreciates your ideas and your progress.
Like, I personally think that they don't get it much how revolutionary or how innovative is the project, because most of people working in Web3 Foundation or Parity, they are not DeFi experts. They are experts in cryptography, they are experts in Rust, backend development, networking, and all this other stuff. So when they see Omnipool or something, they can't assess how how is this better than SushiSwap or other DEXs or XYK model or anything else. So
What I can tell you is that we are working with these people in Parity and also with the Web3 Foundation. And when we are talking with them, I mean, we love them. That these are really, really good developers or people in general, and they like mostly, I guess, from what we can feel like working with us, and some of them I cannot name or we wouldn't name, are investing in us. So I guess there is some trust.
Yeah, what they can assess was, for example, when we asked them to do like code reviews for us, and they did it, and they told us like, nice code. There was no bigger bugs or just like some like minor issues, but it was like cosmetic ones. And then they are like telling this to other day colleagues, so they are like spreading good word of mouth about us. Or when they saw other solutions like for spinning infrastructure, which something like that they were also trying to develop, and they see how hard is it actually with much bigger resources than we made it, etc. So they can assess only things which are like familiar to them. So when we were at the Rococo, or when we did these like first XCMs and stuff, that was something with which they are like very familiar. But
it's not the greatest question for us because we with Kubo hate bragging, and it might be better question for them. So,
but unfortunately, I think they don't understand Omnipool, or they don't think much about how is it better or different, etc. And also they don't have time to think about these things. Like there is extreme pressure on everyone in Parity and Web3 Foundation to deliver Polkadot and Kusama fully operational, fully working and successful, because basically everybody is expecting that this will be most successful or one of the most successful ecosystems, because Gavin obviously built Ethereum and etc. So yeah, so they have such pressure and so much work. they are.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, I'm going to wrap up with one final question then. So I thought this might come up. It was from Ali G on the Discord, which is basically, with protocol-owned liquidity and the two token system, are we looking to implement fractional algo price for LHDX similar to Frax?
This is impressive. This is a very interesting question, because, for example, when we started working with block science, like in December last year, one of their first question was like, if we don't want to make from LHDX, the current LHDX, the stablecoin, that it would make many things much easier. And, and we were like, oh, impressive idea, but like don't want to do a stablecoin, as it has like too much nuances. But actually, as we were thinking about it, maybe not stablecoin, but some uncorrelated asset, like, for example, RAI, Reflexer RAI, would be very impressive. Also, the issue which can have USD stablecoins will be if fiat world and dollar and other fiat currencies start to devaluate like crazy. Like it's like inflation is finally a real thing. So I'm not sure if like holding a stablecoin would be attractive. So maybe something uncorrelated, some like floating currency, something like Reflexer, which has some like boundaries from up but also from down, would be very interesting. And also, if you look at Fei protocol, it's very similar. Actually, it's like very similar to Hydra, but they don't have own DEX. Or Terra is also like quite similar to Hydra in some sense, but like having native token as a collateral is like big no, or like it's like very dangerous. We also saw in May that Terra almost got to this like death spiral, and for that reason they are thinking about introducing BTC as another asset in their pool. So these ideas are on point and very interesting, and it will allow to build a stablecoin which could be like very scalable, which don't have like boundaries or issues of other stablecoins, and also could have like very organic demand, because it would be basically stabilizing the pool, but is like very futuristic right now. But also Frax is interesting case. Like no one was expecting that there will be so many quite bigger stablecoins last year, like Frax. Frax has a great run. Also Meme, the Magic Internet Money, and obviously USD and a few others. So I don't know. So it's possible, but it's not obviously our priority. If anyone wants to work on it, like they are very much welcome, and support it and maybe even fund it, but yeah, that's not on the program of the day. Let's ship Hydra and Basilisk first, and then we can see. But also we don't want to build everything by ourselves, and we have more like practical idea or features which needs to be built on top of Hydra and Basilisk.
That's pretty cool. So I think we'll leave it up there. We've had a marathon of questions there. I don't know if you had any closing remarks, or if not, then finish up there.
No, I just want to thank. I just want to look back in last year, and thanks everyone for their extreme patience with us, communicating often poorly and leaving you in chaos, to not knowing like what is happening. It was not intention. No one was hiding. No one was spending your money on beaches and cocaine or other stuff. Actually, we were paying shit ton of things from our own pocket. So thank you everyone for a super hard year, and looking forward and hope for your support this year when we finally go live, and we'll try to do our best. So that's closing remark. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Thanks for your time.
Bye bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone.